what we're going to do today is we're going to do the Chapter 6 hands-on programming exercise, which begins on page 272 in your book. So we're going to start by making a copy of our Chapter 5 hands-on programming exercise. So we're going to copy this, and we're just going to paste it. And if you want to, you can rename it. And I'm just going to call it my Chapter 6 hands-on. Rid of that copy. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to open it. And we're going to open the project file. Okay, now you want to check and make sure that you've got the right project. What you should have is you should have your project from Unit 5 that has the color dialog, the font dialog, the menu strip, and it has the buttons gone from down at the bottom. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a couple of forms to our project. So there's a couple of things that I want to do first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Chapter 4 Hands-On. Okay, so just double click there, and then double click on my project. Okay, we're going to go to Application, and we're going to click on this button right here, Assembly Information. Okay, we're going to change this to Chapter 6 Hands-On. Okay, we are going to change the assembly information to say, what are we going to change the assembly information to say? It's our Chapter 6 hands-on. Our description is, oh goodness, now I can't find the page for this. This is on page, assembly information, page 259. Okay, so we're going to put a billing program, and for the company we're going to put R in R for reading and refreshment, of course, and our product, for our title we're going to put R in our billing program, and for our product we're going to put Chapter 6 hands-on, and our copyright is 2010, and then just leave all this stuff the same. We're not going to change any of that. Change OK. Alright, so what we're doing is we're setting it up so that when we do our About form, all of that information is already in place. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create our additional forms. We have several additional forms that we're going to be using in this particular project. We're going to be using a splash form, we're going to have an About form, and we're going to create a summary form. Okay, we're going to use the summary form instead of that pop-up window that we had on the last one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating our forms. Now, to create our forms, we're going to go under Project. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our splash screen. Splash screen is easy. We're just going to click on Add Windows Form. Okay, then if you look, you see that there's lots of different kinds of forms we can do. We can do Class, Module, Windows Form. There's a couple in here that are standard. About Box is one of them, and we're going to use that one. Okay, we're not going to do that one first. We're going to do the splash screen first. If you scroll down, you're going to see a splash screen. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on our splash screen, and we're going to add that. Okay. And you see that what we get is a splash screen. Now, if you look at our pictures that are on page 2, there are some pictures, the sketches are on page 274 and 275. The actual pictures are on 277. Might be easier to work from the pictures on 277 because then you can see what goes where. You can actually just change the things here. But what you want to do first is you want to go to My Project again. Now that we actually have a splash screen, we want to set our splash screen. So we're going to go here. We're going to do splash screen. We're going to do splash screen 1. Okay. And then what we need to do, and this is kind of a little bit hard because this is something that deals with something called threading. That is something that we have not done yet, and we're not going to do. But it's kind of a little more advanced concept. But what it's going to do is if we run this program right now, our splash screen is going to come up. it worked out pretty well. So we really don't have to do this. They may have changed that. That may be something in 2010, but if you want to hold it open for longer, you can do something called threading. Since it seems to hold open for pretty long, we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to let it stay. I'm not even going to deal with threading because it's going to leave it. But if you look at this, and notice it just stays open for a couple seconds, but that's all we really need, right? Because it's the purpose of a splash screen is basically so the user isn't sitting there going, is my program opening or not? A splash screen is just there so that the user knows that something's going on, that their program is loading behind the scenes. But notice what we did. We went in and we changed that assembly information. Now, look at our splash screen. When it comes up again, I want you to look at the details on the splash screen. Okay? Notice they're all correct. Okay? So we don't have to change anything. Okay? So even though, I'm going to close this out again. We're going to go to the splash screen design. Notice it says application title, version, and it's got this funkiness, and then it says copyright. Notice even though it says that, when the splash screen comes up, everything is correct. That's because we changed it in our application information. So we're just going to leave it. We're not going to mess with any of this information here. We're just going to leave it as it is. We're not going to change any of our properties, although you can. We're not going to. We're just going to leave them the way that they are. Okay? The next one that we need to create is we need to create an about form. Okay? The about form does the same thing that about does, is it tells the user about the program, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the about box and we're going to add it. Okay, this is the same thing, okay? Our about box does exactly the same thing. All this stuff here is going to be filled in because we filled in the information that we needed from before, okay? Now, the third one that we need to fill in is a little bit more complex because we're using a summary form. This is going to be a form that's specific to our particular application, and they don't have kind of a standard form that we can use. So we need to create our own. Our own form in order to use for this. So again, we're going to go into our project. Okay, we're going to add a Windows form. Okay, and that just the same thing. Make sure that you have Windows form selected because that's what we're adding. Is we're adding a Windows form. And we're just going to, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You need to name it first. So if you want to, you can delete it, or we can just go in here. We don't want to do that. And you can just right click, and we're going to rename it, and we're going to call it summary form. Okay, we're going to do this just the same way. And make sure you spell it right. Okay, just the same way that we do everything else. Okay, and then make sure that your name is summary form. Okay, and I think I spelled that right, S-U-M-M-A-R-Y form. Okay, now, what we need to do is we need to start changing the properties just like we would change the properties of anything else. So what we're going to do is, just based on the look of this, it's a little bit wider. I'm going to make it a little bit wider here. Looking at the picture on the next page, I'm going to work from that because they've got a lot of weirdness going on and the other things that I'm not going to explain right now, but when we get to the programming, I'm going to explain it then. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by renaming. We got to change the text of our form. So we're going to go down to the bottom here, same as normal. We're going to change our text to our NR, and this is the billing summary. Capital summary. Okay, so we want to change the text. Now we need 4 labels. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we need 3 text boxes. 1, 2, 3. And we need a button. Alright, so I'm going to put my button down right here. I'm going to put my text box here. I'm going to put a text box here. And I'm going to put a text box here, and I'm going to put a label, and I'm going to line it up here, excuse me, and I'm going to put a label, and I'm going to line it up here, and these labels, we're going to have to realign them after we type our stuff in here because they're going to change. And then this label, I'm just going to stick right here in the middle. Okay, so, alright, so our first label, what our first label is and actually this isn't discussed in the design form, but you can see it in the description. So what it is the text says, same as always, R in R for reading and refreshment. Okay, now if you want to, you can change your font. It looks like they've done some changing to the font, so I'm just going to change my font a little bit here, just because I like Comic Sans. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to use Curls MT, even though that's my favorite. So, and I'm going to make it bold, oblique, and I'm just going to change it. Instead of 8 points, I'm going to make it 11 points. Just make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And center it kind of nice in the form. Okay, label 2, I'm going to call that my total sales label. Okay, and again, your book doesn't give labels names. I frown on that heavily. So give your labels a name. We're going to do label 3 is going to be average sales. And this is going to be my average sales label. And then my label 4 is going to be number of customers. So I'm going to call it my number of customers label. And I'm going to put number of customers. Okay, then we need to do our text boxes, and our text boxes we should always name the same thing as we name our labels. So this text box is going to be our total sales text box because it goes with our total sales label. This should be our average sales text box. Okay, and this should be our number of customers. Oops, we need our text box, not our label there. This should be our number customers text box. So we're going to do number customers text box. Okay, so now the other thing that we want to do is, because these are output boxes and there's no input, we don't want to confuse our users. We don't want our users to think they're supposed to be inputting any information. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select all 3. I'm going to hold down my control button, click, click, click to select all 3, and I'm going to change my read only. For some reason it's not letting me. What do I have selected here? Oh, I had my form selected. That's why it wouldn't let me. Oh, see, I did it again. You can't have your form. Okay, just make sure you've got your text boxes selected. LMNOP, read only. You want to set your read only to true. Okay, so we're just going to do that all at the same time. Now, notice I can't see some of this, so I'm just going to drag this. Number of customers is the longest one, so I'm going to click it and drag it out here. Make sure everything lines up nice and purty. Average sales, and I had it lined up to the pink, and I want to line up there. And my total sales, I want to line up pink, and then I want to line up with my other ones on the bottom. And there's not equal spacing, but I'm not going to worry about that. Now, next thing we want to do is we want to do our close button, and we're going to do this one, ampersand close, and of course we're going to name it, and this is going to be our close button. Okay, so now we've got all of our forms. Okay, so now we have our about form, we have our about, okay, we have our about box, we have our billing form, we have our splash screen, and we have our summary form. Okay, so our billing form is what we're working with here. Okay, billing form is where we're going to make most of our changes. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change a couple of these, because a couple of our a couple of the variables that we're using are now going to be used on those new forms that we created, right? So we can't declare them private because private makes it so that they can only be used on this form. So we have to change them. So what we're going to do is we're going to declare our project wide variables. Okay? So one of them is going to be our customer count integer, and we're going to change it from private to friend. Okay, friend, and if you read it, it says the friend keyword specifies that one or more declared programming elements are accessible only from within the assembly that contains their declaration. What that means is that as long as you're inside this Chapter 4 hands-on, this Chapter 4 hands-on, not another Chapter 4 hands-on, but this particular Chapter 4 hands-on, as long as you're inside it, you can access this particular variable called customer count integer. Okay, we have a couple others that we're going to have to use. On that summary form, we're going to use also the grand total decimal. Grand total decimal. And we're also going to use the average decimal. Okay, so those are going to be the same. Now, the thing is here is that notice we also have grand total decimal here. It can't be a friend and a private, okay? So we have to get rid of it here. Okay? Now, I think there's a way to do a search in here, and I can't remember, but as you're looking through, watch for average decimal, grand total decimal, customer count integer, because if you see it declared anyplace else, we need to get rid of it. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to scroll down. Okay, we're going to go past the calculate button, okay, because everything in the calculate button is all going to be the same. We're still calculating everything exactly the same, okay? Our private, this little function that we did is the same. Our clear button is still going to be the same. Our new order tool strip menu is going to be the same. Okay, so we can scroll past that. Now, this is going to be the same because remember, we have this. We have our summary form. Okay, so in this, what we want to do is we want to actually call the summary form. So when are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do it when we do it. Okay, now here's that decimal, average decimal. Remember, average decimal we're going to use in that form, so we want to get rid of it here. Okay, we don't want to have average decimal here because we declared it as a friend up at the top. We need to get rid of it there in order to make it work. Okay, so all this stuff is going to be the same. I don't know why that says summary button tool strip. It just should say summary tool strip menu. Okay, all this should be the same, average. Now, here it says average decimal equals grand total decimal customer count integer. Okay, then it calls this. Okay, it calls this box. Okay, this message box. Okay, instead of calling the message box, we want to call our summary form. So we're just going to delete all that. We don't want any of that. Okay. Instead, we want our summary form. So we're going to go ahead and do our summary form, and then in order to call it, we're going to do it the same way that we do, well, almost the same way that we do a show message dialog, except that we're going to do show dialog instead of just show. We're going to do show dialog and then just open and close our parentheses. Now what that does is that's going to call this summary form and pull it up. Now we're going to have to code that summary form to tell it what to say. Okay? So no big deal there. Then exit button is going to be the same, right? Exactly the same. Calculate selection going to be the same. Clear item is going to be the same. Font tools is going to be the same. Color strip is going to be the same. About. Now about is going to be different, right? Because instead of doing the about box, right? What we want to do is we want to display that cool about form that we just made. So what we're going to do is it's the same thing. We're going to do this about box 1, and it's the same thing. It's going to be show dialog open and close those parentheses. And that's all there is to it. We don't have to do all that coding and message strings and everything like that. We don't have to worry about all that because we've got all that stuff done. Okay? Now we don't have to worry about the splash screen because that shows up at the beginning of our at the beginning of the program. Okay? Automatically. That's what we did when we went here to my project. We went down to the bottom and we designated it as our splash screen. Now, what we need to do is we need to program our summary form. Now, in order to get to the summary form, we're used to double clicking on something. We're not going to double click something. Okay? What we do is we call this form, okay, or we activate it. So what we're going to do is down here on the properties, we're going to click on this events button. Okay, this is a new button over here. It looks like a little lightning bolt. So we're going to click on this events button. Okay, we're going to find the activated. Summary form. Oh, make sure you clicked on the summary form. Notice I'm clicked on the close button. That's not going to help. You need to make sure you clicked on the form. Okay, click on the form, make sure it says summary form up here, then you want to click on activated. Okay, now we're going to program this exactly the same as we programmed our first one. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put some comments up at the top. We're going to do our program name. Okay, this is the chapter 6, hands-on. Okay, we're going to put who the programmer is, and that should be you. So put your name there. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to put the date, and I'm just going to go ahead and leave that blank. And then you can put a description of the program. And in the book it says, it's a big long, this project calculates the amount due based on the customer selection and blah blah blah. I'm not even going to do all that stuff. Okay, so you will because this is your project. Okay, then we're going to put the form name. Summary form. Okay, and this is blah 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 because you're going to put everything else there because you're good students and you do everything you're supposed to. It says in 281 what you're supposed to type. Okay, so then you have your public class summary form and it says when it's activated. What do we want to do? Well, we have to get the data. And where are we going to get the data? We're going to get the data from the billing form. And that's capital billing form. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get the data from the billing form. So how do we do that? Well, pretty much the same way that we did it the other way. We're just going to add one step. So what we're going to do is we've got our total sales text box. Okay, dot text because that's the property we're working with. But this time we're going to add one additional step. Okay, we're going to tell it where to get it from. We want it to get it from the billing form. It's going to go to the billing form. And then we're going to get the grand total decimal. Okay, we're going to get the grand total decimal. And then, since we're doing it, grand total decimal is what? It's a decimal. So we need to turn it into a string. And then we're going to make this a currency. So we're going to put that C at the end. Okay, then we need to do our average sales. Okay, average sales text box. Of course, we're going to do the text as the property we're going to change because we want to output it to the text box. Okay, again, we want to get our information from the billing form. So we're going to add that one step. We're going to do the billing form instead of me. Remember before we used to do me dot grand total decimal to string, right? Now we're saying billing form dot because we're not getting it from the summary form. We're getting it from the billing form. So we can't say me dot. We have to say billing form dot. So we're just changing that one little thing, okay? But other than that, it's all exactly the same. So this is the average decimal, and again, we need to make it to string, and we're going to make this currency also. Now the final thing we have to do is the number of customers. Okay, number of customers text box. It's our text property. Okay, again, where do we get it from? We get it from the billing form. It's the customer count integer. We're going to make it to string, and we're not going to worry about changing it. It's obviously not going to be currency because it's not currency. Okay? The next thing we need to do is we need to program the close button. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find our summary form, and then we're going to program this one just like before. We're going to double click on it. Okay? It says the same thing. What happens with the click? Now this time we're not exiting the program. So we're going to do this just a little bit different than we do everything else. We're going to close the summary form, but we're not going to use the exit. We're not going to use me.exit. We're going to use me.hide. Okay, this time we're going to hide. So we're closing the form more or less. We're just sort of hiding it, okay, because we don't want to close the whole program. If we put me.exit, it's going to close the whole program. That's not what we want to do. We just want to hide this particular form temporarily until maybe we want to use it again. Okay, now, once you've got all that done, you want to make sure that everything is hunky-dory. Okay? So we're going to test it. And we're going to cross our fingers and we're going to pray that everything works. Okay? The splash screen seems to work. Okay, we're going to calculate. We get a value. We're going to do a new order. Clear. We're going to calculate again. We're going to calculate. We're going to clear, and we're going to do a summary. We're going to clear, yes, and look at that. We get this nice new form that we created. Total sales, average sales, number of customers. We're going to close. Make sure that works. Okay, test your about box. It pops up. Make sure your information is correct. It looks right. Remember, this is all the information that we put on that in our project information. Go ahead and click OK. See what happens. It closes out. Go ahead and make sure that your exit button works. It should still work. And everything works great. And that is your Chapter 6 hands-on. That's how you add additional forms to your project. Good luck.